The term loss and damage refers broadly to observed impacts and projected risk from climate change, such as loss of ecosystems, biodiversity, damages to crops, homes, businesses, infrastructure, but also harm to human health, loss of access to territory and loss of cultural heritage, for example. So a very broad concept. And in the scope of international climate negotiations, loss and damage has become what I call the third pillar of climate action. It looks at addressing these losses and damages associated with climate change, especially in the context of developing countries and those that are particularly vulnerable to climate change. So at its core, loss and damage is actually fairly simple. A failure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also too little progress in adapting to climate change already locked into the Earth system means that people, communities, businesses, infrastructure, and natural environment face harm from extreme events and also from slow onset processes. So what can we do about this? And, for those losses and damages that have already occurred, how can we support those impacted and also finance them and give them tools to actually recover from those impacts? Loss and damage may actually occur where what we call adaptation limits are reached. Sometimes actions are unaffordable or not physically or technically possible or socially difficult. So, where that is the case, what can we do then? What support measures exist? And that's one of the key questions that is now being discussed at COP26. It's a significant challenge because it touches on quite a few questions in terms of fairness and equity and proving historical responsibility for climate change, and then also paying for these losses and damages associated with climate change. And developing countries have called for compensation, while developed countries have instead thought to treat it as, adaptation. We give you money to address these risks and reduce these risks. And I think now that actually climate change has become a reality, not just a risk, this raises questions in terms of how to make sure that funds are actually flowing and there are sustainable solutions for financing loss and damage. And that's one of the critical aspects that hopefully we'll see some progress during the COP26 conference in Glasgow. So importantly, there are some mechanisms in the global COP system, such as the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. And it will be really important now in Glasgow to actually see how that can be utilized for some concrete action. And concrete action also means funds and finance being mobilized and being spent in a sustainable way to finance those losses and damages that are already occurring. And that's going to be one of the hot topics in Glasgow. And hopefully we'll see some consensus and new solutions emerging.